The first week of the NBA season is down, and we got some questions about some teams coming up. We got 4 unbeaten teams left in the NBA. I want to talk a little bit about those teams. Plus, the Golden State Warriors are now bracing for the possibility to miss Steph Curry for quite a bit of games. We're going to get into all that plus more. Got to talk about those Milwaukee Bucks as well, and why some of y'all was tripping on Klay and y'all owe Klay Thompson an apology. We're going to get into all that and more on today's NBA Central.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content, y'all. I want to start off with this injury to Steph Curry. So it sounds like right now, according to ESPN's Kendra Andrews, that there is a possibility that Steph Curry is going to miss multiple games after sustaining a left ankle sprain in Sunday's game, which was a 112-104 loss for the Golden State Warriors to the Los Angeles Clippers. Steph Curry in that game had 18.6 assists in 27 minutes on the floor. And the Golden State Warriors, the reason why this is such a big hit for the Golden State Warriors, because they have started off the season way hotter than I think what a lot of people were expecting, averaging 123 points per game. They were actually leading the NBA in points per game before this loss to the Clippers. So there's been a really good sample size there. They're leading in rebounds per game at 54.7. So that's really good. They are leading the league in assists per game at over 30 assists per game, moving the ball around, getting everybody involved. But defensively, no slouches either as far as some of the more eye-popping numbers. They're averaging 12 steals per game are the Golden State Warriors, which that would more than lead the league in most times. There are a lot of teams with 12 points, but they're 12.7 steals per game in that time. They're leading the league. They're second in the league in three-pointers made, only second to the Boston Celtics, who've made 68 so far in the league. And so the Golden State Warriors are playing really good basketball, fun basketball to watch as well when it comes down to it. And so now with the Golden State Warriors potentially missing Steph Curry, that's a big ding for that team because you have nobody that can replicate what Steph Curry means or brings to that team at all. And so while you're seeing kind of a balanced effort by the Golden State Warriors to make sure everybody's staying involved, it's really if Steph isn't there, it's how far is that going to go into all being for naught? That's the question that you got to ask yourself as a Golden State Warriors fan. And so what this team has been doing right now, when you look at it, like it's not like Steph's averaging a huge number above. Like Andrew Wiggins is leading this team right now and scoring at 19.7 points per game. He just is. Buddy Hield coming off the bench is averaging 19 points per game as well. You got Trace Jackson Davis, who's averaging 10 points for this team. But Steph Curry's right there, the third leading scorer at 18.3. Now, that would have been higher had he not left that game, things like that. But he's important. He's leading your team in assists, right, for a team that's leading the league in assists. He's your leading steal man at 2 per game for a team leading the NBA in steals. And so it's just Steph is so important to what that team has going on there. And an injury to Steph, if he's going to miss a lot of games, several games, right, depending on how much that several is, the Golden State Warriors just don't have a lot to really stay super competitive in that time. Now, they do have players that are stepping up. Gotta love it. Gotta love to see when it comes down to it. You want to see better from Kuminga. Maybe this is an opportunity for Kuminga to wake up some. And, he's only averaging 8 points per game. Maybe he steps it up some for this Golden State Warriors team while Steph is out, right? We've seen Kuminga step it up before. And so the Warriors are really going to be looking for that type of performance, that type of step up, if they really want to stay, like I said, in this competitive Western Conference. And so it's early still in the season. It's more important to have Steph later, right? But if you can avoid any time of Steph Curry missing, you want to avoid that. And just to highlight this, like I know it's 3 games into the season, but you got teams that are 2 through 8, all at 2-1, right? It's already bunched up. That's just what it's going to be. And so, missing Steph for a long amount of time, it really sucks, right? They're going to be waiting on to see how serious and severe this is. It could be mild to moderate. That's from Steve Kerr. And they're saying that they'll add some after the MRI will determine how bad that game is. I mean, that injury is for Steph Curry, but it's definitely that. And Steve Kerr has talked about how deep he's going into the rotation. 14 players have seen the floor for the Golden State Warriors in the first game. They've gone 12 deep at times. Like Steve Kerr's trying to doing his work to find the best combination of guys so that this basketball club can win basketball games. And so, we'll see how that develops. The depth that they've gone to at the start of the season may help them with the next man up mentality. They could still win games, but it's going to have to be a very different way without Steph Curry being on that court. But let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think that the Golden State Warriors have enough to stay competitive in the Western Conference if Steph is to miss 5 to 10 games or something like that? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. From one current Warrior to a player that's always going to be remembered as a Warrior, and that's Klay Thompson. And Klay Thompson had a lot of people concerned after his preseason, and rightfully so, right? And I think this thing with Klay is a perfect example of why you do not want to worry too much in preseason. Out of the 29 shots he took, he made 7 of them. 7 of 29 he was. But so far, Steph Curry is averaging 20 points per game so far, only in 2 games for the Golden State Warriors so far, but he's shooting the ball 48% from the field and 50% from three-point range, and he's taking 11 of the motherfuckers a game, so it's not like he's just not taking a bunch of three-pointers. Klay has been hugely important to this Dallas Mavericks team, and he's been a big reason why this team did win the game that they won. They could have won the other one as well, right? Want to be clear there, but overall though, this is a team in the Dallas Mavericks that needs what Klay Thompson is bringing, and he's bringing it at a level that's been really good so far. Through 2 games, yes, only 2. He's their second leading scorer, averaging more points than Klay Thompson, being in that starting lineup, and the balance is there. We always knew that this acquisition of bringing Klay Thompson to the Dallas Mavericks was about how he played out there on the court with Kyrie, with Luka, right? And how his scoring and his shooting ability opens the court for Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, who are also playing really solidly for this Dallas Mavericks team as well. And so adding that shooting touch has been really good there for Klay. And like I said, I only wanted to touch on it because a lot of people were concerned about Klay Thompson's performance in the preseason. And so far through the sample size that we have in the regular season, it seems like that's not going to be a worry there for him. And on top of that as well, he's averaging 2 steals per game, right? So he's playing pretty goddamn well right now. And so if Klay Thompson can keep this up for this Dallas Mavericks team, this is a team that needs that scoring punch. They need that three-point shooting. They need that spacing so Luka can go to work. And again, how this team was elevated by their role players, and Klay Thompson is above role player, right? I think that he's proven that he's still above a role player, but he's really kind of leading the pack of those guys behind Kyrie and behind Luka. He's important. Derek Lively's important. PJ Washington's still going to be important for this team, even though he's not really averaging a lot of points either. But all these players are going to be important to what this Dallas Mavericks team is doing, and we're seeing that really start fitting together better than what we saw in the preseason, mainly because Kyrie and Luka did not play a lot. So, overall, I think that a lot of things so far that we saw in preseason aren't holding out to be the same stories in the regular season. And because of that, it just is a perfect example of why preseason should be taken more for the process than the result. Sometimes the same result isn't going to be there in preseason because of the way that players and things are used in the preseason. But Klay is really showing a lot of what he can bring here, and he's showing that, hey, for the people that thought Klay was completely washed, he's still not the Klay Thompson of old. But for people who thought that Klay Thompson was completely washed, he's showing you that, hey, I'm not. Check yourself before you try to check me, right? And so hopefully Klay can keep that going. He's playing with a player in Luka who is the odds-on favorite via most betting sites to win MVP this year. And Klay has the most streamlined role that he's ever had in his NBA career. He just does. And so in adapting to that, I think that's going to be really important to see how that grows and evolves in time for Klay and this Dallas Mavericks team. But yes, it's early in the season, and it's time to do a little bit of overreaction. I want to look at the NBA standings so far, in which we have 4 teams right now that are undefeated. 2 in the Eastern Conference, 2 in the Western Conference. And of course, the Cleveland Cavaliers and Boston Celtics have really separated themselves. When you just look, they are one of only 4 teams in the Eastern Conference with positive point differentials, and the next one close to them isn't even really close. The Cleveland Cavaliers are winning games, right? And they have a point differential of 20 points per game. They are beating their opponents by average of 20 points, right? And the team other than the Celtics that are below them, the Celtics are still 4 points below differential, but the next team behind them has 11 worse point differential than them. What the Cleveland Cavaliers have done so far in this early part of the season has really shown that why they double down on the court. Now, they haven't faced off against the best. The three teams that they faced off against are all teams that people are expecting to be in the bottom of that Eastern Conference. So that definitely affects the way that you view their point differential and their performance so far. But, they've faced Toronto, Detroit, Washington so far. But then when you look at the players that are playing the best for them, Donovan Mitchell, over 23 points per game. Everything else is spread out for the most balance that we've really seen from the Cleveland Cavaliers team in a while. Jared Allen with 18, Evan Mobley with 18 per game, Darius Garland with only 14 per game. But again, he's leading the team in assists at 5.7. Right below him is Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell with 12, 2 steals per game as well. And they got two players averaging that. Evan Mobley's also averaging 2 steals per game. Like, this Cleveland Cavaliers team is demolishing opponents. Now, the biggest question for this undefeated team is how are they going to fare when the competition is getting better? And that's coming here this week. Today, they face off against the New York Knicks. Wednesday, they face off against the Los Angeles Lakers. Friday, they face off against the Orlando Magic. And Saturday, they have a game Saturday, they have a game against the Milwaukee Bucks. This week, the 4 games that the Cleveland Cavaliers have this week are going to be really important to tell us how real is this way they've been playing against bad competition. How well is that going to stick out for them in the against some better competition, because that better competition is coming this week. And so we'll really get to see that this week, how this team performs against those teams. I'm really excited about those matchups. Even though the Milwaukee Bucks have their own issues, which we'll talk about here later in the show, that's still a solid team that has a really, top-heavy team, and Giannis and Dame can go off at any time. But those other 3 matchups, New York, Lakers, and Orlando, the Lakers also being one of the other undefeated teams, it's going to be really important to see how that shakes out for this Cleveland Cavaliers team. So my one question for the Cavaliers is, how do they come out of this week? And do they look as dominant coming out of this week as they did the first week of the NBA season? You guys can let me know how you feel about that. Then you get to the Boston Celtics, who have a point differential of over 16, right? They would be more so than leading the league if it wasn't for what the Cleveland Cavaliers have done against their competition so far. The Oklahoma City Thunder are up there as well with 19, but I'm focused on the Eastern Conference. And so the Boston Celtics, we already know they're doing it via a barrage of 3-pointers. They've turned into the Golden State Celtics. They've absolutely killing it. You got Jason Tatum probably playing the most complete basketball of his career. And they've also not faced off against the best competition. They started off against New York, which, that's a team that's trying to compete for Eastern Conference Finals, but they hit them with a barrage of threes. They faced off against Washington and Detroit, and much like the other teams, they got better competition this week as well. You got Milwaukee, you got Indiana, you got 2 games against Charlotte coming up this week for the Boston Celtics. But with the way that the Celtics handled their opponents last year, I more believe in what they've been doing than what I do necessarily with Cleveland Cavaliers. But the bigger question here for this undefeated team isn't necessarily about how they fare against the competition. Does Jason Tatum keep up this pace that he's having? He's leading the Celtics in points, leading them in assists. He's averaging, like I said, 33 points per game, but 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.5 steals per game. He's only turning over the ball once as well, and he's playing some extremely solid defense. That's my question here. Does Jason Tatum keep up this pace for another week? To tell you what, Jason Tatum is going to be an MVP conversation if he keeps up this level of play, because it's been amazing and great to see Jason Tatum play this way after all the doubt around his game and things like that. So monitoring that to see how Jason Tatum continues to perform for this team as well. Next up, let's switch to the Western Conference. We've got 2 undefeated teams in the Western Conference. That's the Lakers and the OKC Thunder. And the Lakers have been playing really well. The thing about this is that JJ Redick has this team buying into a system. They actually have a system that they're executing, and they're playing through Anthony Davis. And LeBron is having these stints where everything's going through him, and he's having these big bursts of just dominance. But then the way that Anthony Davis has fared throughout this, and they have faced off against some good competition. The Timberwolves, the Kings, and the Suns are the teams that they face so far. And so they've done really good in the competition that they have. And when you look at the balance that they've struck in this roster, the thing that I love about this so much is that JJ Redick, as a first-time head coach, has already settled into basically his 8-man rotation. And he's playing that and playing these guys off of each other extremely well, and it's working for them. You got Anthony Davis and an MVP. He's leading the Lakers in points, rebounds, steals, and blocks. And the only thing that he's not leading them in is assists, and that's led by LeBron James because of how LeBron is having his stints. You got also LeBron averaging 23 points per game. Austin Reeves is having a really good season for them offensively and defensively. Rui Hachimura, like their starters are all averaging double digits. That's what you want to see. And then you're seeing solid production from their bench and a player like Dalton Knecht who's coming along for them as well. And he's continuing to grow and develop his game also for that team, hitting his three-pointers. He's taking 4 per game, hitting at a 41% clip, and he's not done. It could get better than this. And so really like what the Lakers are doing. My one question for the Lakers are, do they continue playing through Anthony Davis, and is this just the way that they're going to play this season? If it is, they're going to win a lot of basketball games. This Lakers team that I doubted, other people doubted, hey, listen, they got a lot to show, and they continue to show it at a really damn good level as well. Love what we're seeing from the Lakers here. Next up, OKC Thunder is the last undefeated team, and they have the second highest point differential in the league. Other than the Boston Celtics, 19 points per game is what they're beating their opponents by. 19 points per game. And with the OKC Thunder, much like I'm looking at all these teams, let's see what their schedule is coming up this week. They have the San Antonio Spurs on Wednesday, the Portland Trail Blazers on Friday, and the Los Angeles Clippers on Saturday. They have an easier schedule than a lot of these teams we've talked about. I'm not going to say it's easy. That matchup against the Spurs on Wednesday is going to be fun to watch. But if I had to pick any team that I think could come out of this still undefeated the second week of the season, I think the OKC Thunder can do it. Their acquisitions and their defensive balance has been astronomical to see, and they're one of the teams that can do it offensively. They do it defensively. Chet Holmgren, if Chet keeps this up, he's going to be right there in MVP conversations with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They're both going to be able to do it. Alex Caruso, Aaron Wiggins, Lou Dort, what these players mean to this team defensively has been great and amazing to see as well. They're another team that their whole rotation, everything that they use, there's such balance and symmetry to how it used. And keep in mind, this was all without the person who was projected to be their starting center, and Isaiah Hartenstein, who may not be back to the end of December. You get him back and are able to stay healthy heading into for the majority of the rest of the season. Man, this OKC Thunder team is a finals contender here. And what Shai's doing, what Chet's doing, just the fit of this overall roster, that's the thing I can continue to be impressed by. And the one question that I have for this OKC Thunder team is, are they going to be the best defensive team in the league this season? The most disruptive team in the league this season? You look at what they're doing with deflections already, what they're doing with steals, how they're taking away the best thing that teams do. This defensive rotation, this may be the best defense in the league. And can they keep up this defense? That's my biggest question for this OKC Thunder team. They got their sound everywhere else, right? And if Chet and Shai keep this up, that's more than enough to build a championship contender around, but that's not all they got. That's not all that they have, and that's what makes it even more special for this team. So, listen, Jalen Williams averaging 18.7 points per game. Aaron Wiggins is averaging 10. Nobody else is averaging double-digit figures, but this team is getting it done offensively and defensively. And to see a team in this type of rhythm with the way that they're able to perform has been great and special to see, man. It's been great and special to see. And so you just want to see if they can keep this up. But if they do, man, it is going to be a hell of a season for the OKC Thunder. But let me know what you guys think down below. Of the 4 undefeated teams that we have left in the league, Boston, Cleveland, OKC, the Los Angeles Lakers, which team do you think has the best chance of remaining undefeated after this second week of the season? Let me know that down below. Now, from one team from several teams that are undefeated to a team that, had still a deep team, still has their aspirations, everything, that is the Milwaukee Bucks. This is a team that is turning into a conundrum. Giannis Antetokounmpo, after their last loss, saying this: we don't have an identity. And while this Bucks team on paper has talent in the world, they have some very big holes. And right now, when you look at it, the thing with it, they're the 8th best team offensively, averaging 116 points per game. But unfortunately, they're the 24th ranked defense as far as points per game because they're giving up 119 points per game. And while the combination of Dame Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, it looks like it's going to be great, or on paper should be great, the problem that this team has is if they are facing off against any type of athleticism, this team just hasn't had it. This team looks old. This team looks slow. They're slow with their defensive rotations. This is going to be a team that's bad defensively. And so you're looking at those players as well as players like Chris Middleton when he comes back to really start stepping it up for them. This is a team that they don't have it. They don't have it. And while this team, and this is another sign about when you build a team, you need to make sure you build it soundly. They're not playing their defenders, right? The players that they do have that look like they can be defenders in this league, they're not really playing because they need the balance and the firepower offensively. And it's just a lot being looked out right now. Brook Lopez looks like he's old and slow now. While he's always going to be a threat to protect the rim, he just hasn't been there. Taurean Prince has had some flashes, but that's really it. Gary Trent Jr. has had some flashes as well. He's averaging double digits, but everything that this team has, it's rough on them right now. And so because of that, like, I just don't have faith in the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't think they're going to stay as bad as what their record is right now. But at the end of the day, like, they're losing games against winnable games. And that's another thing that hurts them. They are losing games that should be winnable. Now, they won against Philly, which is cool. They lost against Chicago. They lost against Brooklyn. And, their week coming up, while we're talking about weeks coming up, they got Boston, Memphis, Cleveland. Like, they can lose realistically all three of those games. So the Milwaukee Bucks are going to have to figure out an identity. And when your best player, the player that's been there his entire career, is saying that they don't have an identity, you got to start asking some questions on how do you obtain it, and if you can't, what do you need to do to get one? And we'll see what that means for the Milwaukee Bucks in the long run. But let me know what you guys think down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799 for the number one spot for everything basketball related. Yeah, see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.